welcome everybody today. I'd like to thank those of you who are attending in person for the Business to Business Luncheon and for those who are joining us on Zoom. My name is Eileen Buchanan. I am the chapter chair for SCORE in Southwest Florida for the next 2 weeks. SCORE is an organization with over 10,000 volunteers nationwide. Our mission is to foster vibrant small business communities through mentoring and education. We have about 35 volunteers in the Southwest Florida chapter, and they have a wide variety of business experience. Our only goal is to help you be successful. Now, we've worked with the Southwest Florida Enterprise System Center. We've worked with the Southwest Florida Enterprise Center for some time, but we've recently acquired space in the building. So we can provide mentoring services right here. We plan to send out an announcement within the next few days establishing the procedure for setting up appointments here. In the meantime, you can go to the SCORE website, score.org, and ask for a mentor today if you wanted to. I'd like to introduce Sharon Moston, our presenter today. Her topic is positioning your brand on social media. Sharon is a nationally recognized authority on marketing optimization throughout the customer life cycle. She holds certifications in web analytics, social media, paid search, search engine optimization, email messaging, and landing page optimization from industry-leading authorities. Over her 30-plus year career as a marketing professional, Sharon has worked with Fortune 500 companies, mid-sized firms, startups, and nonprofits. Today, she is CEO of Moston Marketing Group, a Google partner, advertising agency that specializes in SEO, analytics, email marketing, and social media, as well as the traditional media, TV, radio, print, direct mail. Sharon is experienced in leading marketing strategies and implementing both organic and paid campaigns and programs. Sharon is also a SCORE volunteer. For those watching the presentation through Zoom, please use the Q&A function on your screen. For those here today, please hold your questions until the end of Sharon's presentation. And if you haven't already done it, please turn your phones off or put them on vibrate. And I'd like to introduce Sharon. Sharon?
Thank you. So today's topic is Social Media 101. And as we've gone around the room, and for those who are online, which way am I going to? As we've gone around the room and for those who are online, we've got a wide variety of people who are representing companies who are business to consumer, business to business, and even direct to government agencies. So my experience across all of those channels will allow us to talk about how social media fits into all of those different customers. So the agenda items for today, we're going to talk about the social platforms, where are we going to be marketing on social media, the basic social media strategies, what are we trying to get out of social media and what can social media bring to the table, managing your social media, because it's not a set it and forget it. And then finally, social advertising and so you've heard content is king. And I really like this quote by Jay Baer, that's content is fire. And social media is the gasoline to put on that fire, to make it explode. From a social media platform perspective, unlike other channels, social media is fundamentally one-to-one. You're not broadcasting out the way you do on TV, radio, print, things like that. You're targeting specifically your audience and you're talking to them, having a conversation. And that's the thing that you really need to remember from the very beginning. Just the same way that you wouldn't go into a cocktail party and be like, hi, Sharon Mostyn, buy my product. You don't do that on social media either. There's a way to work through developing your audience so that they know, like, and trust. Because as we all know, from a business development standpoint, people buy from people that they know, like, and trust. So the idea, the idea is that social media has fundamentally changed the way that we interact. Some of you in the audience are my age or a little bit older, and 100 years ago, we would pick up the phone and call a company or write them a letter, or even in more recent times, send them an email and say, here's what I like, here's what I don't like, here's what I have questions about. Now, we jump on a social media platform and we expect instant answers. So it's really fundamentally changed, not only how people interact with you, but how you're expected to interact with people. If I got a phone call, I would be expected to answer in a timely manner. But if you get a piece of mail, sometimes it takes quite a bit longer than expected to get that response. And so with the onset of social media, it's really changing the way that we're engaging with brands. Social media communities are built organically. You can't buy followers. You can't buy engagement. You can certainly monetize that experience so that you're reaching your right target audience. But ultimately, that organic meeting of who you're trying to reach, meshing them not only with your brand, but with others who are advocates for your brand, is the ultimate goal of social media. The biggest mistake is to forget that you're dealing with people. You know, sometimes when people are, for example, sending out an email, they send out a mass email to everybody on their list, and they say, here's who we are, here's what we do, and everybody gets it all at once. With social media, people don't necessarily get that message all at once. They're coming to you at different times, and you need to react accordingly. And so when we look at the different types, the different platforms of social media, I'm going to talk about 8 kind of big players. Now, there are some new ones, and we will talk about one of the newest, which is TikTok. But there are some new ones like Clubhouse, which is essentially talk radio for the internet. But we'll start with kind of the big boys. So Facebook is primarily a B2C business to consumer social media platform. And the reason why I say primarily is because ultimately, even if you're B2B, you're still dealing with people who are people. And so they're going to be on Facebook, especially if they're my age or a little bit older, checking for pictures of the kids and grandkids. And if they happen to see your ad and ultimately follow you kind of around the internet, it's another reinforcement of, hey, I'm relevant to your wants and needs. The pros and cons of Facebook is that, yes, there are a lot of people out there, but they're not necessarily looking for your business and your services. And so you need to keep that in mind, that your click-through rates, getting them to go off of Facebook, are going to be a little bit lower because their attention is drawn elsewhere. Similarly, Instagram, which is a primarily visual media, mainly photos, but sometimes you'll have Instagram videos and what's called IGTV or Instagram TV, which is a longer form video that you can watch on Instagram. And so you'll watch the first couple seconds, and then you'll have to click through to watch those reels. Okay. So another B2C platform is Snapchat. The age group on Snapchat is a bit younger. So for many of you, Snapchat's not your target audience. And we'll dive a little bit deeper into them as we go forward. And finally, Twitter. Twitter is the, oh, sorry, camera problems again. There we go. Twitter is for current events. The ideal behind Twitter is breaking news. So if you've got something that's important and breaking that you want to share with the world, or if you need to tag on to somebody else's events, you know, conferences and things like that, or, you know, if there's a specific day of the year or the week, that's the place to use Twitter. And if we move to the next slide, Pinterest is essentially for arts and crafts and for and for ideas, and to give people ideas about what can be done with your product. It's not really a good fit for B at all. There is some interest, but primarily it's a B2C. TikTok, again, we're skewing much younger than traditional business to consumer and business to business audience. YouTube, so YouTube is considered social media in that you can comment on it the same way that you could comment on a Facebook video or an Instagram video. But with that said, YouTube is also a search engine. And in fact, YouTube is the #2 search engine behind Google. And oh, by the way, it's also owned by Google. So Google actually holds the top 3 search properties. Google search engine itself keywords, Google Images, and YouTube are top 3 properties. And believe it or not, they hold more than 90% of the searches between those top 3 properties. So although we're mentioning YouTube in the context of social, because you can comment on it and things like that, it's also a search engine. And so we won't spend as much time on that. And finally, for you B2B companies out there, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is your be all and end all for a business to business company. So let's talk about using these social media channels effectively. Everybody says you send emails on Tuesdays and Wednesdays at 11 a.m. and that's the only time that you should do that. And you said that you reach out on Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram at just the lunchtime or 1 o'clock. That's the only time you do it. Well, what happens if you've got customers across the country? Your lunchtime has now expanded quite a bit, hasn't it? And so, although these are guidelines on when people are on these social media platforms, they're not necessarily the only time that you should reach out to them. So, for example, it shows here that 81% is 81% of the audiences on social media are online and on those social media platforms on weekdays. Well, we don't have this problem as much here in Florida, but in the wintertime in most of the US, on the weekends, it really, if it's snowing or if the weather is miserable, your audience on social media spikes because they don't have anything else to do. We're all out on the boat or at the beach. We're not worried about that. But if your audience is nationwide, you need to take that into account. So there are seasonality and cyclicality issues with day of the week. Similarly, there are changes. For example, Twitter shows 76% of the audience is on between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. Makes a lot of sense, except when there's a hurricane coming through, and that hurricane's going to land at 11 o'clock p.m. All of a sudden, here goes Twitter's numbers. They go through the roof. So even though you see these numbers and you go, oh, 94% of the Facebook audience is online between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. All I'm going to post is between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. If you post before 9, they may see you when they're on between 9 and 4. If you post after 4, they may see you when they're on after dinner or before bedtime. So these are guidelines, and it's always best to test with your specific audience. So we go to the next one. Social media usage, when you look at how many people are on these platforms several times a day? That's that dark blue bar. Between 25 and 51% of people are on social media several times a day. I don't know about you, but this little thing stuck in my pocket, I'm on it more than several times a day. And so you look at the balance of people who are not on it several times a day, even those that are on less often. We've got 26% on Facebook less often than once a day. Every 2 days, every couple of days, every week. They're still out there. And the idea is to reach your target audience at the right time with the right message. So you're reaching the right people, the right time, and the right message. When you find that platform that's a good fit for your audience, you'll find that they are on that social media platform and where you want them to be. And so you need to give them the right message. So we'll talk about the platforms themselves. Again, we'll just kind of touch on them, the kind of the big boys. So from YouTube's perspective, again, YouTube is more of a search engine than social media, but look at those audiences. 91% of people 18 to 29, 91% of people 18 to 29 are using YouTube. So if that's where your target audience is, YouTube might be a good fit for you, even though it's not quite as social as some of the other platforms. Facebook drops down to 81%, and honestly, that 81% of 18 to 29 are the kids who are on there, making sure mom/grandma isn't posting embarrassing things about them. That's the only reason they're on there. They're not going to engage with you. The idea for Facebook is if you look at that 65%, 50 to 64, if your target audience is especially women, 50 plus, you need to be on Facebook. Snapchat, again, huge numbers for the younger demographic. I would say Snapchat and TikTok skew even younger than 18, but this particular study started at 18. Instagram is a lot more visual. I would say Instagram is really kind of your 20 to 30s, late 30s, maybe even. You do get some older demographics in Instagram, and it is skewing older as time progresses, because now we're following the kids again. The kids started out on Facebook. The older demographic got in there to see what the kids were talking about. Now the kids are on Instagram. We're scooting over to Instagram. So you really need to make sure that you're following your audience over time. Just because this is what this study shows, it's not necessarily what's going to happen for the next 5 years. And again, Twitter, it's breaking news. It's, we've got where you would send out a press release type situation. We've got hashtags that we'll follow, and we'll talk a little bit about hashtags when we get to specifically to Instagram. And if we move to Facebook, as kind of we discussed, it's 75% female. It is primarily 35 plus as far as engagement and activity. It is the world's largest social media platform with over 2 billion users, not 2 million, 2 billion users. And then 80% of all US adults are logging in on a regular basis. Those numbers are staggering. To try and think of how I can reach, all of these people with a simple post. Now, just because you're out there, this is not the field of dreams. Just because you build it, they are not necessarily going to come. You need to engage your audience, because the way that the social media algorithms and Facebook and Instagram in particular, the way that they are functioning is that the more people engage with you, the more often they'll see your content in their feed. And so ask questions. Talk to them as if you were talking in the room, and start that conversation and get that engagement going, because you want them to engage with you. You want them to see more posts. And we'll talk about the types of posts that will resonate with your audience shortly. But Facebook, we have other opportunities rather than just straight posts. We have what's called Facebook Live. And so we can turn on a video and start talking, and Facebook records it and they'll save it for posterity. They will also notify any of your users or any of your followers that, hey, Sharon's starting a Facebook Live. And so you'll get a little pop-up that says, do you want to go see what she's posting on the video now? That's great. There are groups in Facebook. And the nice thing about groups is that more often than not, groups will get a higher engagement. And so groups will show up in your newsfeed more often. So many times, especially for authors, there will be author groups that are part of the author's page that you can communicate with other fans and followers and make sure that you've got that interaction going. So it adds a whole nother level of complexity as far as moderation, but it's definitely a group. But entering a group or building a group is also a good way to reach more people. And you can comment as a page in a group. And so making sure that you're finding the right groups, people who are talking about your products and services, and not, again, we're at the cocktail party. Don't jump right in and start selling. Jump right in and provide value. So insights. Insights are Facebook's analytics. And that's how you can see that your numbers may not necessarily be 75% female. They may be 95% female. They may be 55% female. All of that kind of averages out in your platform. And for your specific account, those insights are invaluable. You can see if you're reaching the right audience. As far as, next one. As far as Instagram, again, we're skewing a little bit younger. Success on Instagram, really, you've got to have a lot of content. You can't be posting everybody else's videos. You can't be posting everybody else's pictures. It's got to be unique to your company. And there are ways that you can kind of get around that if you need to. But the idea is to make that image striking so that when you're scrolling through your Instagram feed, on your mobile phone, because that's where most of us are looking, you're scrolling and you're scrolling and you're scrolling and you hit what we call a thumb stopper. Because all of a sudden your thumb stops. You found something that really has caught your attention. And so making sure that you find that thumb stopper. If everybody else is posting that same picture, it's not a thumb stopper. So make sure you've got really amazing visual content if you're going to be in Instagram. Again, organic posts on Instagram are great. The Explore page is a nice way to find other similar topics. And one of the ways that many companies on Instagram do that is through the use of hashtags or number signs if you're my age or older. So the hashtags, and Instagram will allow you to put up to 30 hashtags on your Instagram post. Each individual post can have up to 30 hashtags. What we recommend is that you use a combination of branded hashtags, so hashtag master marketing, of generic hashtags, hashtag marketing, and of a little bit more specific hashtags to exactly what that post is about, hashtag social media 101. So if somebody is searching for marketing or social media, they'll find you in that Explore page. Another thing to remember with Instagram is that there is one link that you can put that is clickable in any Instagram page. So you've got your bio link that is clickable. Anything else, if you put a link in a post, they can't click it. Make it really simple so that they retype it somewhere else or send them to the link in bio, which takes them to the right page. Kind of a drawback from an Instagram perspective, but the idea was that they wanted to keep you on the Instagram feed rather than jumping off into other people's websites. Instagram stories, Will stay up for 24 hours. These are really amazing if you have limited time offer. If you're offering 50% off today only, just for 24 hours, that's the place to put it, is your Instagram story or your Facebook story. And then IGTV, we talked a little bit about, that's that longer form, up to a minute video that you want to share out there. Now let's talk about LinkedIn. LinkedIn, for me, as a business-to-business company, is one of my favorite channels. And the reason behind that is because, if you look, about 75% of LinkedIn conversations happen in groups. That means people are talking and communicating in those areas where you're specifically looking. And so if your company is there, that's an opportunity to talk from a B2B perspective directly to the person who's buying your products and services. So it's the way to meet with people. Again, people do business with people they know, like, and trust, but if you're a business company. So SlideShare, all of the slides from this presentation will go on SlideShare, which, oh, by the way, links back to my Facebook or my LinkedIn page, as well as my personal LinkedIn profile. And then again, analytics. Using those analytics, not only do you get the information like you do on Facebook Insights or Instagram Insights for who the people are, male, female, age group, ranges, in this ranges, but you'll also get, are they salespeople? Are they executives? Are they in manufacturing industry? Where are those people in the business world, which help you figure out how to reach them more effectively and how to tailor your posts to make them fit who's following you. So we talked about the platforms and all of the different ways that people can reach you, but where in the customer journey does social media fit in? So social media really is at the beginning and the end. Social media is not a sales channel. We've talked a little bit about, people want to make sales and they want to do great things with social media. The idea is to build awareness and to build loyalty. And those middle, really hard hit sales, it's not the best channel for it. I'll put it right out there. But you can get them to do what's called micro conversions on the way to a sale. So you can get them to sign up for an email newsletter to nurture them along. You can get them to visit your website, to perhaps fill out a form to get a white paper. Again, nurturing them along that sales process, that you're not making that instant sale. It's unlikely to happen in more cases than not. So you can see, you've got that attract where social media is, and the delight. So what's the delight portion of it? Ratings and reviews are the single most important part of any social media campaign. The idea behind it is that the more people who are talking about you, the more people who are reviewing you and saying you're doing good things, it's free advertising for your company. So it's really important to make sure that, you ask people, hey, give us a rating, not only on one of these social media channels, but on specific to you. So Google My Business, if you've got a physical location, or even if you don't. Also things like Yelp or TripAdvisor, depending on your market and who your audience is. Getting those ratings and reviews that's that loyalty part. Keep them coming back. And if they can't come back and buy from you again, if you have a one and done, a product that lasts forever, I don't think that many people do, but if you do, then have them talk about you to their friends and family. We bought a house here in Cape Coral about 3 years ago now. And I am a member of multiple foodie groups and Cape Coral groups and readers and all kinds of things like that. And consistently, the Cape Coral, Fort Myers area groups I'm seeing, who built your house and are you happy with them? And every single time I'll chime in and I'll say, you know what? My builder is amazing because 2 years after I bought the house, the warranty expired in the first year, but 2 years after I bought the house, I sent a text message to the construction supervisor and he texted me back right away. And he said, you should have the key to that sprinkler that's going off at 5 a.m. when you didn't want it to go off at 5 a.m. So that type of response, that type of communication, that speaks volumes. And we'll see that people are really, they want to buy from people. And so having that loyalty is really important. From a strategy perspective, we're really looking at 4 basic strategies: grow the brand, turn customers into advocates, drive leads and sales, and improve customer retention. And all of them have different social media goals. So for example, we'll walk through grow the brand. If my idea is I'm just starting out or I'm getting ready to expand and I want to grow the brand, how do I do that? Through social media. And your social media goal is awareness, and the metrics associated with that are the number of followers, the number of shares, and things like that. So how do you get more of that? We'll talk about that kind of in the strategy phases. But the idea is to see all of those metrics increasing. From turning customers into advocates, you're looking for the engagement metrics. Again, you're looking for people like me who, when somebody sees a post that says, did you like your builder? Say, yeah, I did. Pick me. My builder's awesome. And the way that you know that that's working is you get those comments. You get people liking your posts. You get other people liking your comment. You get people mentioning. So when you do an at mention, you hit the at sign and you start typing in the business name and it pops up and it comes in. And sometimes it's easy because Lamadas is always Lamados and it's Lamada Coral, whatever. Sometimes it's a little bit more difficult when it's option 1 builders. There could be a lot of option 1 builders around the country. And so making sure that your specific listing comes up when people start typing in that mention is really important. Driving leads and sales. We talked about this one. This one's the toughest one from a social media perspective. But again, you can drive those leads to get those micro conversions. So the website clicks, email signups, all of those things are driving leads and sales. And improving customer retention. Because once we've got that customer, the idea is to keep them for a while, right? So that consumer metrics, those testimonials, those social media statements, those ratings and reviews are all things that you can do on social media to get those strategies across the finish line. And so John Jantz said, fully understand the goals and questions your potential customers have at each stage. If you do that, you can effectively guide them no matter where they choose to get their information and engage. So those questions are key to that statement. Understand the questions. What are your customers' pain points and how can you address them? It's part of your big overall business plan, right? Is to be able to address your customers' needs. But if you step back from a social media perspective, how do you do that? By posting things they care about. It's an easy one. So let's talk about social media strategy phases. There's 2 phases: simple setup and ongoing optimization. This one I put update social profile information. If you don't have a social profile, the phase 1A would be determine which social platform or platforms, because you don't need to be everywhere. Start with one, build it out. Once it works, move on to the next one. But create that social profile with all of the keywords that you would use for your website, with all of the content that you really want people to know about you. Testing those social media features like Facebook Live, like Instagram TV, IGTV, test them once you've got everything set up and you've got a baseline. Begin that content creation and scheduling, because you don't want to do it the same thing every day. And then being proactive and engaging with people. Thanks for liking our page, and here are things that you can do to reach us. Da, 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 da. In phase 2, not good. Phase 2, gather and promote user-generated content. That user-generated content, ratings and reviews. It may be pictures of people using your products. It may be behind the scenes. What are people doing with, run a contest. What's the best thing that you can do with a slice of bread? Well, I've seen a couple very exciting, creations made from something simple. And so, have people talk about your product, share it on social media, reshare what they've shared. Be sure to kind of acknowledge them, and especially the ones that are getting a lot of traction, and use that user-generated content to form out your social media strategy going forward. Plan it in advance. I can't stress this enough. More often than not, I talk to companies and they're like, so today is National Cheeseburger Day, and so we're going to talk about cheeseburgers today. Okay, well, did you not know that today was National Cheeseburger Day a month ago? You can look that up. There's a whole, 365 days of holidays. And you can pick out the ones that are important. That content in advance, schedule it either through the platforms directly or through Sprout Social, Hootsuite, or things like that. And then make sure that you've got the basics covered. And if something exciting happens, if we've got a sale that we want to run a 24-hour thing, that's, if something that fits your specific needs, then add those posts in as necessary. But make sure it's already spelled out so that, as someone mentioned, if you get hit by a bus, you're already covered for a little bit until you recover. Identifying new accounts to follow. Just because you've got a page doesn't mean that you shouldn't interact with other pages that are relevant. So finding other authors, finding other real estate companies, finding other, using real estate sample. Perhaps you start with a real estate, you've got a real estate company and you follow other real estate companies that are out area. Or you follow home inspectors or appraisers, or you follow builders or architects and engineers. All of those people build into your network from a business standpoint. Why not support each other on social media and reshare their content? Have them share your content. If you've got something specific to their audience, make a mention. Optimize and upload new videos. Video is that thumb stopper that we talked about. If you see movement as you're scrolling, the tendency is to stop. So, and it doesn't have to be a fancy, 3-camera production and, professionally edited, things like that. Start from here and start from those Facebook posts. Look at how to manage that social media strategy. The bottom is the key. Listen first. Do not jump right into social media and start spewing everything you could ever imagine people want to know about you. Listen to who your target audience is. Start looking at your competitor sites, see what people are saying, pros and cons about competitors, and start from a listening standpoint. Then you can move up to posting in the way your customers talk and what they say and how they say it. Then sharing good content, and yours and other people's content. Doesn't have to be, you don't have to, I'm not saying necessarily share competitors' content, but share the good content that's relevant to your audience. Responding quickly to comments, both good and bad. More often, people will jump in and respond to those negative comments. And, if they say, oh, I had a bad meal at, this restaurant, you'll get that, you'll get everything, oh, that restaurant's awful. And, and so the restaurant sometimes will chime in and say, guys, we had a bad day. Like, we didn't get our shipment. We have no employees, all of those things. So the tendency is to be defensive. But when you get those positive, glowing reviews, when people say, I had the most amazing ice cream of my entire life and everybody needs to try this, Dirty Turtle, then respond back in and say, you know what? Dirty Turtle is a customer favorite. You may also like whatever the pumpkin spice flavor of the fall is, So, trying to communicate and to really grab their attention for not just negative things about you, but positive things is really important. Asking questions. That's part of that engagement factor. How do you get that engagement going? The easiest way is to ask a question. And then engaging with the customers, both on pages and groups. And finally, becoming that subject matter expert. Be the page that everybody goes to when they want to know where's the restaurant to eat at this week, or who's got the best daily specials for groceries. Whatever that is, be that subject matter expert. I get a lot of comments and things like that on things like social media. I don't get as many comments on analytics, but analytics is the basis of all marketing. So making sure that you're talking about what your audience wants to talk about, and you're becoming that subject matter expert. From a social media content perspective, that content needs to meet the expectations of your target audience and offer value. Again, be the expert. You can do that through text posts, images, videos, infographics, photos, papers, slideshows. These are great ways to do that, creating content on social media. We talk about community building. Next one. These numbers are key. People trust 23% of companies, 23%, less than 1 in 4. But they trust 90%, 9 out of 10, 90% of people, even if they don't know them. So I'm going to trust somebody whose opinion I don't know. I don't know if they are good, bad, or indifferent. I don't know if they are somebody who's a competitor of the business I'm looking for, but I trust them because they posted it on social. It's that whole, this is my French boyfriend. They said it on Facebook. It must be true. So making sure that you get those recommendations really falls into that community, because people are trusting more what you're saying about you more than what you're saying about yourself. So that leads us to the 411. You know what 411 is? 411 used to be, you pick up the phone, call 411, it's an information service. But on this, the social media calendar 411 is how often do you post stuff and what do you post? So the 4 is the vast majority of your posts are reaching those earlier mid-stage, upper funnel type audiences. And you want to share facts and stories and inspire them and engage them and get them kind of excited about your brand. And then every 5th post or so, you want to give them a little bit of a soft sell. Hey guys, we have a coupon promotion, or sign up for our newsletter to get more information, or whatever, kind of that soft sell. And then out of every 6 posts, it doesn't have to be 1, 2, 3, 4, and then soft sell and then hard sell, but out of every 6 posts, only make one of them hard sell. This is what we're looking for. Keep it simple, keep it brand focused, keep it really audience specific, because this is your one chance. And if you hit them with too hard, if you're, hey, how's it going? Cocktail social hour. What's the weather like? It's been really great. Oh, by the way, buy my stuff. Again, it's that disconnect. Don't hit them too hard, but you can put that little hard sell in every once in a while. So calendar. We talked about the calendar a little bit. The idea is to test those posts, all of the things that we talked about before. Test posts that are staggered throughout the day, Make sure that your content is platform specific. I would not recommend 30 hashtags on Facebook or LinkedIn. I would recommend a few on LinkedIn, hardly any, if any, on Facebook. So make sure that your content specific. Don't just post the same thing everywhere. The overwhelming majority of posts, as we talked about, can be done ahead. And make sure some of those materials are self-contained so that if you do get hit by a bus, somebody can pick it up and work on the rest of the month or the rest of your year. From an advertising perspective, I've heard it said that Facebook, if you follow a company, you will see less than 2% of their posts. So if you have 100 people following your company, less than 2 people, unless they engage with you, will see your post. So how do you make that bigger? How do you make that better? Advertising, give them some money. Same way as on Google, same way as out in the world. You know, advertising is the way to go. The nice thing about social media advertising is that you can target it specifically to your audience. If you're B2C and you only want to reach men who are 35 to 54 and you're on, you know, Facebook or Instagram or whatever, you can target it down to just those. And oh, by the way, I only want them to be in South Florida. Okay. If you're on LinkedIn, who have a company size of 100 or more people, we can do that through companies like mine, or you can do it yourself. It's a little bit challenging, can be done. But remember, the next slide. These are some examples of social advertising. But remember, on the next slide, measure, test, learn, optimize, repeat. Make sure that you're getting the biggest bang for your buck. And it was interesting to me that 1/3 of the people said that laying out the correct metrics and measurement was their challenge for social media. It's not finding the right picture. It's not, you know, how do I measure it? So that measurement is the key, and constantly monitor those key metrics depending on your business goal. Because we talked about the 4 different types of business goals that social media, if you only care about awareness, if you only care about how many people know about your company, does it matter to you how many people clicked on it? No, it's how many followers you got, how many people are engaging or interacting. It doesn't matter how many people clicked or how many people signed up for your newsletter. That really meshes with measurement. And so making sure that you're posting and monitoring and optimizing. So, social media checks, 4 things to do. Establish a presence. Make sure that your profiles match across all platforms. If you're on multiple platforms, generally with a new company, we recommend that you pick the most appropriate media channel, whether Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, whoever, and make sure that you start with that. Once you get that one, expand to another channel, but make sure that your social media presence across the channels match. They look at you on Facebook and on LinkedIn, they may not see the same posts because you're not reaching the same audience, but make sure that your messaging is the same, your images are the same. And when they go to your website, that same continuity of message applies. So make sure that your content is relevant and engaging. If you're on a social media platform that uses hashtags, are you using them? And are you using them correctly? Then schedule those social media tools. So if you only had 4 things to do, those are the 4 things. If you have a little bit more time, then there's some daily and weekly tasks. So daily tasks like to comments and questions. Get that engagement going, get that conversation going. You know, tracking influencers and competitors. Team advocacy, what does that mean? Well, if you're on LinkedIn, for example, and you have employees, hey, how about, you know, we just posted a great article about this, you know, how about sharing our social post? Getting that team involved. Follow new followers. that team follow back kind of idea. Connecting and chatting with anybody who interacts. On a weekly basis, check your campaign results. You don't have to really optimize anything on a weekly basis because sometimes it's really fluid, especially with the holidays coming up and things like that. But make sure that things aren't going off the rails, good or bad. Engaging, holding a strategy meeting, figuring out what are you doing next week? What are you doing next month? That all sounds great, but what happens if I have 10 minutes? Because I'm having that in a day. Here's the 10-minute checklist. Check all of your direct mentions, respond to everybody who's important to you, confirm you have all the posts planned. We talked about that scheduling. Respond to non-direct mentions of your brand, and look for interesting content that you can share later. 10 minutes, done. Well, okay, occasionally I got a little downtime, I got 30 minutes. So what do I do next? Add in monitoring mentions of your brand, creating and curating images, and then finding new hashtags if you're on a channel that requires hashtags. Okay, so Fridays are my day. I cleared my schedule. I have an entire hour to spend on social media, or I could go to the beach. I'm going to spend it on social media. So what am I going to do? I'm going to do all of those things in the 30 minutes. Plus, I'm going to check in on my KPI, key performance indicators. What are those metrics looking like for this week? Investigating competition. Have they started new Facebook Live campaigns? They're doing all of these things. And then commenting on relevant industry posts. So, I told you if you have 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour. What do you have questions very much?
Thank you, Sharon. We have some questions.
Yeah, I got some questions for you. All right.
What is number one and two recommendations for collecting customer reviews?
For realtors, the number 1 and 2 recommendations. Residential realtors and not commercial realtors, probably Facebook would be the number 1. And that would really tie for me with Google My Business. And the reason why I say that is Google My Business, again, is a little bit social and that people can rate you and review you, but more a search results place to be found. And so that rating and review on Google My Business really has more of an impact on SEO than it does on anything else. So even though it's not quite a social channel, Facebook and more often than not, the Google My Business.
How much should you plan I read that you don't have 15,000.
I have a 95 widget. Once you buy it, you don't need to buy it for another 5 years, lasts that long. There are upsells or upsells that I'm currently offering. So 95 is my whole thing. My cost of goods sold is about half of that. So I thought that I need to, and so when you work those back out, sometimes it doesn't make sense at all to advertise. It really doesn't. Unless you're looking for, and kind of what I told him was, unless you're looking for a loss leader or you're going to go on Shark Tank and you need to say, I've got $500 million in sales, it doesn't make sense. So budget's a tough one. I've seen ads that spend less than $10 a day on LinkedIn that drive multi-million-dollar deals. It really depends on your margins, and it depends on who your target audience is and what you can get away with. I would say $15,000 over the course of a year may be a good thing. I wouldn't say $15,000 a month. I can't think of, unless you're really growing amazingly fast, I can't think of a company that spends that kind of money in a small business or even a medium-sized business.
One more question. How do you choose the right social media manager or agent?
How do you choose the right social media manager or agency? There's a business card over there. It says Boston Marketing Group. Just give me a call. No, seriously, the easiest way to do it, and honestly, for some companies, social media managers and social media agencies are not the best fit. Sometimes it's really, you kind of have to do it yourself. You have to do it organically. The best way to find the best fit for your company depends on your company. You know, I would look to see that they have experience in your, not necessarily your business, but in your target audience platform. So I don't necessarily know that I would look for somebody who's a TikTok person and have them run my LinkedIn account. So, you know, looking for, you know, what experience do they have reaching your target audience? And then how does that fit into your budget? Because sometimes if you've got a small budget, it doesn't really make sense. Sometimes it makes more sense to work with a content agency to create the content and then hire somebody with a little bit more of a junior level to actually schedule those ads out, making sure that you've got the strategy in place, making sure that you've got the content in place, and the targeting could be done by an agency, and then the actual execution could be done by someone at a little bit more junior level.
I have a question.
All right.
Sometimes people are just starting in social media and they're not really sure what platform to start on. For example, in our audience today, we have someone who is a tax preparer. If he was just going to start on social media and it was the beginning, where would he start?
So the first question would be business taxes or consumer taxes, or both?
Probably personal and maybe small business company, something like that. Small.
So personal or small business, my gut reaction would say, let's start with Facebook. And looking at Facebook, you can target that down to, you know, do they come to you from outside a certain geographic area, or you have a limited area? Do they have owner, business owner or CEO or whatever in their Facebook profile? Because more often than not, especially with small businesses, your Facebook profile says, my Facebook profile says CEO of Boston Marketing Group. So you can target on things like that. Starting with creating good content that people, and thinking about what are people on Facebook to do and why would they share this? You know, if they're sharing it, if you're posting about, the tax laws are changing and, here's the top 5 things that you need to do, that's something that may gain a little bit more traction on Facebook. If you're posting about, here are the new tax laws and here are the 57 minute details of, of how to make that happen, that may be better suited for LinkedIn. So it's, considering the target audience, considering the platforms, and kind of changing that message as appropriate.
We talked about social media automation and some of the programs that I pay my 14-year-old $1 a day, did it work very well in the last 2 days. So just curious on some of those platforms and
so as far as things like scheduling programs, so each of the things that we talked about has the opportunity to schedule in advance. So you can go into Facebook, for example, and schedule your post for a later date or time. If you want something a little bit more robust, you could use something like Hootsuite or Sprout Social. Those are kind of the two that I come across most often. And the nice thing about those is that you can see kind of what your week looks like, what your month looks like, all of that easily across multiple platforms. So if you're focusing on one specific platform, it's just as easy to do it within that platform. If you've got multiple things going on, you might want to make sure that you're using something that's a little bit more robust.
One more question.
Okay, my first one, I'll just ask one question. What thinking of some of my clients that I've met with, like, for example, Wings Company, or people for tax, like, where can I get a list of people that I can maybe target via constant contact or something? That, is there, what's the best source to pay for that or whatever?
So that's really more of an email marketing question, social media 101. My email marketing response is don't buy lists ever.
Oh,
Because more often than not, and this kind of diverges a little bit and we can dig in afterwards, but more often than not, when you buy a list, it's already outdated, especially in this day and age when people are leaving companies left and right during the Great Resignation. So the more people that you send to who are no longer at that company, the higher the likelihood is that your information will be marked as spam, or that you will hit what's called a honeypot or a spam trap, which is an email hasn't been used in a very long time. And by hitting those on a regular basis, especially if you keep emailing them, you'll get sent to junk, or you won't get delivered at all. Your email deliverability will tank. So from a targeting perspective on social media, really start looking at the slides that we showed. Figure out, are we B2B, B2C? If we're B2B, it's pretty easy. Hit LinkedIn more often. That would be my starting place. If you're B2C, consider the demographics and consider what your messaging is. Again, with 2.4 billion, Facebook is an easy go-to if you're targeting women 35 plus. If you're targeting a little bit younger, consider Instagram. If you've got a specialty, if you're a wedding caterer, for example, consider things like Pinterest, because that's what the kids are doing, is they're posting, they're creating boards for weddings. So it depends on determining your target audience is the first step, and then figure out which social media, where are they on social. All right.
And I think we'd like to thank everybody who's participating both on the Zoom call and in person. Sharon's here if you want to ask her questions afterwards. And everyone will be able to get a link to this presentation. So you can go through the slides and look at the material again. Thank you.
Thank you all. I still got the camera on. All right. Well, thank you.